of fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you'll lament this.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin. And today we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts and insights on Pixar's Elemental. And before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, what's going on? What you been watching? How's your week been?
Yeah, I guess I can mix it up and just kind of go with the TV route this time, since we talked about some gaming and some other things we did last time. But I finally wrapped up Barry series finale. It's definitely really interesting ending. Glad I was able to watch that series. Very cool series overall. Loved how it shifted genres throughout. And then I also caught up on The Dave and watched the Dave season finale, which was one of the craziest episodes of television I've ever watched.
Really? Okay. See, I need to watch Dave. I need to watch a lot of things. And I'm ashamed because I've been pumping so much time into Tears of the Kingdom. I think once I'm done with that, I think I'm at a point where I'm just going to get a few more pieces of armor, beeline it, and be done. Because I am very... it's not that I'm tired of it. It's just it's taking up so much time that I want to be, contributing to catching up to TV shows and whatnot and just doing other things. And yeah, especially with just everything that's been happening. It's been a lot going on, but definitely going to add Dave and Barry are both on my backlog. Don't you worry.
Which is great. It's so cool that two of the biggest shows on TV for a while there were just two first names, Barry and Dave, just hanging out.
Barry and Dave. They should do a crossover.
Dave and Barry.
Dave and Barry, DB. There we go. But yeah, glad that you've been, enjoying the TV life all together. Like I said, just playing catch up with a lot of stuff right now. Nothing too crazy. Getting ready, prepping myself for Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny by rewatching. I say it's going to be the trilogy, but I might end up watching all of them just because it's been a very long time since I've watched any of these movies.
Thinking about going in blind, like not doing a rewatch or watching the older ones.
Yeah.
See a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah. That'll be interesting for our review.
Also, I just don't really have much time to watch all of them, so
that's true.
There's no excuse for that.
You see, I also say that I'm going to watch all of them, and I'll probably just end up watching just Raiders of the Lost Ark because that's just a really good movie, and kind of just cut it there and, do whatever else I can in the meantime. But for all of our wonderful listeners out there, welcome. We're going to be covering Pixar's Elemental. This is their latest film, their latest animated film. Well, they only do animated stuff, but this is their most recent film since Turning Red was their last film, I believe. Was that the last Pixar film?
It was either that or Lightyear.
Oh, you know what? It was Lightyear. Oh, you see, I don't like to remember Lightyear.
Yeah, wasn't their best work.
I forgot. So I was like, wait, was that Disney animation? I'm like, no, that was Pixar. Yeah, so coming off the heels of Lightyear comes Elemental. If you are new here to the show, welcome and thank you for clicking on our episode in the vast ever void pool of other podcast episodes, let alone movie podcasts altogether. The way that we usually break down our reviews is that we introduce the cast and crew, of course, go into our spoiler-free thoughts of this film, and then we will go into our final thoughts and our ratings. Sometimes we do run into spoilers, but there isn't anything here to spoil. So we're just going to talk about the movie without talking about the movie and see how it goes from there, because that is what a spoiler review, or excuse me, that is what a non-spoiler or spoiler-free review usually is. So we're going to jump right in without any further delay. We'll be right back after this introduction to Elemental.
Yo, 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 Ember!
Yo, Claude, can't talk, in a hurry. And don't let my dad catch you out here again.
What? Come on, he doesn't like my landscaping.
Ugh.
Anyway, June Bloom is coming, and you just got to be my date. 'Cause check it out. I'm all grown up. And I smell good. Ow! My queen.
Sorry, buddy. Elements don't mix.
Flame!
Gotta go.
Come on, go to the festival with me. You never leave this part of town.
That's because everything I need is right here. Plus, the city isn't made with fire people in mind. Sorry, but it'd take an act of God to get me across that bridge.
An act of God or an act of Claude?
And we are back. You just heard a little snippet of Elemental, and the director of this film is Peter Sohn, and the writers include John Hoberg, Kat Likkel, and Brenda Hsueh. And the stars of this film are Leah Lewis, Ronnie Del Carmen, and Mamoudou Athie, just to name a few. And the story is as follows. This film follows Ember and Wade in a city where fire, water, land, and air residents live together in a place called Elemental City. This is a rom-com / immigrant story. There's a lot of messaging in this film, and the runtime is around an hour and 43 minutes. A little bit longer than your typical Pixar film, but because I would say they're usually around like an hour and 30 minutes, but I actually can't remember what the runtime of Lightyear was because that movie seemed like it lasted forever. But we're about to get into our spoiler-free section of Elemental. So I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his initial reactions on the film.
Yeah, going into this one kind of seemed like it slipped under the radar a little bit as far as release goes, because I think we've seen a couple things here and there throughout the past year or so, just kind of teasing the art style and the animation and some of the things that have to do with elements for the story. Just kind of throwing those things out there, but kind of seems like it snuck up on us. Definitely, you always have to have your eyes open when you see there's a Pixar release, because obviously Pixar has been the best at animation for many years now, and they just seem to have kind of the best quality stories and animation combined to make some of the better movies that we've seen in the past 20 years, all starting with Toy Story and what was it, 1999 when that came out?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So like 25 years, they've kind of been the top dogs. And I'd say this one, for me, was good, not great. There's obviously the Pixar animation quality is top notch, like always. It's always like a visual like pleasure to just watch everything and see all the interaction between different elements and the environment that they create and how just cool it all looks. But I think the biggest issue for me is what you mentioned at the top, where it is blending a lot of different things into one story, where it is Pixar's first ever rom-com, which is definitely an interesting thought, where you wouldn't expect Pixar to be doing a rom-com, but it's their first ever attempt at that, while also being an immigrant story, which is also a very, very important story to tell. And then there's also kind of like the self-discovery, self-fulfillment type of storyline going on too, with Ember's character specifically. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot that they tried to blend into one story, and I think it became a bit much where it didn't have as much focus on the individual stories that could have definitely helped strengthen it, kind of split it between a few different stories and messages. But overall, it was a pretty good time. You kind of had to fall in love with the charm of these two main characters and how they fall in love with each other, Wade Ripple and Ember Lumen. Mm-hmm. A couple of pretty good names there. I like Wade Ripple as a name. I'm Wade Ripple. Yeah, there's a couple good laughs throughout. I definitely think the elemental jokes kind of stayed their welcome a bit too long. There was just a lot of them throughout the movie. Some of them worked more than others, but it was pretty solid overall.
So for me, I actually swing a little bit more on the other side of the pendulum. I believe this is one of Pixar's better films within like recent memory. So I tweeted about this again after I got out of the theater. For hours, it was just press only, which was nice, and you can invite people from time to time. Disney's usually nice like that when it comes to their press screenings. You can invite up to like 3 people, I believe. But as I said, I think this is one of Pixar's best films within recent memory. And I actually tweeted stating that I think it's a captivating film that combines mesmerizing visuals, a moving love story, and a profound exploration of self-fulfillment, and that it intertwines the power of nature with the human experience, offering a poignant and thought-provoking cinematic journey. It took me a while to come up with that one because I was like, I wanted to get it right. But yeah, it's like Devin had said, this is Pixar's first swing at like a rom-com type of situation. We've obviously seen like the coming of age aspect from Pixar time and time again with movies like Toy Story and more recently Turning Red, which I also think is one of Pixar's better films within recent years, as well as Luca. But first and foremost, before I go any farther with my initial reactions, I'm really glad that this movie is like in theaters, because for a while there, outside of, I guess you could say Lightyear, I don't really count Lightyear. I was kind of salty that came to theaters, and then Turning Red was Disney Plus, and same thing with Luca. And
yeah, hopefully that trend's over.
I'm hoping so, because with Soul, it all started with Pixar's Soul, which that I understand because it was the middle of the pandemic. Disney's like, hey, let me be nice, and we're going to give you guys Soul to watch something new at home. That was nice. But then it happened again with Luca, which we also reviewed, which I believe we both liked that movie as well as Turning Red, which we both also enjoyed. And then, we got that other film with Buzz Lightyear, which, I mean, the concept was cool, but it just didn't go anywhere. But I think this is a fresh new start for Pixar. Like, it just feels so Pixar, but it tackles these very important messages when, especially for kids, when it comes to, what is it like being, part of a second generational immigrant family who's moved from somewhere else, into a big city like Elemental City. Unfortunately, we did not get a lot of, not a lot of time was focused on air or earth, those creatures. But going back to just the importance of this for kids when it comes to, self-exploration and, not necessarily destiny, but forging your own path and doing what you want to do instead of what you think your destiny or what your life should be based on someone else. Because I definitely felt like I've had a few friends who have gone through that, with immigrant parents, and, when it comes to Ember's family within this film, they've given up so much for the betterment, for a better life for themselves, but mainly for, their daughter and her. She's a hothead. Obviously, she is the elements of fire, but her wanting to run her father's shop when she was younger, and then throughout the film, she has like this temperament issue where she gets annoyed by a lot of these customers, and you kind of get to see her character arc or her story arc, which I absolutely loved. Ember's story arc. And when Wade comes in, it's just like you said, he's go with the flow, but he's such a relatable
that goofy voice.
I know, it worked so well. Like, I really loved this movie for that.
It's interesting because it's also like, for the most part, for me at least, just kind of newer actors that I haven't had much exposure to, like on the rise for this cast.
That is true. And also, I mean, it's a very, like, it's a rom-com, but it is so emotional at times. It'll warm your heart. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you cry. It's just going to make you tear up. And like I said, I think the number one, like the theme here with immigrant parents, like mixed in with like just the animation itself is fantastic. The tribute to, immigrant parents and how kids can relate to that. And also, I think it does kind of go into the whole, biracial, mixed race or biracial dating couples as well. Because you see a little bit of that. It's not as touched on, but I definitely caught wind of that a little bit as well. So there's a lot of important messages within this film that I think kids can definitely learn from, and, just having a family experience by going to see this. I didn't expect anything from this movie. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't even know what the premise was. And I don't even think I like fully watched the trailer. I didn't really pay too much attention because, like you said, Devin, there's not a lot of buzz going on with this movie because this movie is hitting theaters on June 16th, which is also the same weekend as The Flash and The Blackening, which is like a horror movie. So we're definitely getting a lot of mixed genres within the weekend of June 16th mainly. But I came out surprised. And also there is a song that they play that was that's a part of this film that is sung by Lauv. I believe that is his name, Lauv. It is called Steal the Show, and it is heartwarming. I absolutely love it. I've not stopped listening to it since, seeing this film, so it's been great. But I apologize for rambling. I just had to get a lot of that off my chest. I just absolutely love this movie. Definitely one of my favorite animated movies of the year. Not my favorite, but one of my favorites. And I think it's one of my favorite Pixar movies of recent years as well. But I'm going to pass it back over to Devin. Did you have any other spoiler-free thoughts that you wanted to touch on before we get into our closing segments?
Question for you. Did you get the short before the movie in your screening?
I did. It was with the guy from Up and the dog.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. Like, that's one of the better shorts that I recall. Like, it was really, really touching overall. Obviously, when you bring back the characters from Up, there's gonna be an emotional attachment already because that movie wrecks you. So, yeah, it's a really cool short.
Yeah, no, it really was. And of course, anytime you go to see a Pixar movie that is that is tradition for them, as well as apparently there's always a clue to what their next movie is going to be. And I think we already have that. Not the clue itself, just like what their next Pixar movie is going to be. So their next movie outside of Elemental, I believe it's called Elio. That's Elio. I mean, I think there's concept art out there, but I don't really know what it's about. But it looks like it's from the director of Coco. So you're definitely going to be pulling at those heartstrings altogether. But getting back to Elemental, I just thought it was fantastic. Again, I really wish we would have gotten more of Elemental City. That is probably my biggest gripe, is that, we saw a lot with Firetown and the water people, like you can say, the water beings, but we didn't really spend a lot of time with Earth or Air as much as I would like to. I wanted to see a little bit more of Elemental City and what made it this, capital city that everyone was living in. And obviously we know why, the fire people were moved over from Fireland. They started migrating over from Fireland to New Shores for a better life. But yeah, that's one gripe I have. But I think the ending of this movie is very beautiful. I kind of wanted to see more, I'm not going to lie, but I'm not sure about you, but it kind of gave me Luca vibes almost, like the very end, if you know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah, happy ending, but you want more.
yes, I always think that's a good mark of like just a good movie altogether. Like obviously, you know, we watched Across the Spider-Verse and I was like, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Yeah, that's the one you never want to stop.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, overall, I really did adore this movie. I was tearing up. I'm like, this is so good. This is like, oh my God, they're the perfect couple. And it's like, Wade is such a nice guy. Like, he's like the ideal guy that like anyone like should just go for.
Yeah,
Like,
I'd say the best word to describe this movie is cute. Like, just very cute overall. Like, more so than even some of the other Pixar movies. Like, it's a rom-com, and it's just cute.
yeah, an emotional rom-com that deals with, you know, immigrant struggles, you know, biracial dating and what have you, which you don't really get a lot of. You don't see a lot in today's media, but from here or there, obviously Spider-Verse has us covered. But yeah, but let's get into our final thoughts and our ratings here. Devin, what are your final thoughts on Elemental, and what would you rate this film?
Yeah, final thoughts. Solid movie overall. I don't know where I'd rank it amongst Pixar's other movies. Probably somewhere in the middle, because couldn't even off the top of my head just kind of go through and rank, because like you said, there's so many and they're all so good. So that'd be a tough one to do. But hey, maybe in the future we can do a little Pixar ranking or Pixar draft or something like that. Pixar.
That would
bracket.
be fun. Oh yeah.
But yeah, like I said in the beginning, for me it was good, not great. Like there's definitely a lot to like here. Definitely some areas that are lacking for me, but overall, I'd say it's a pretty good time. Definitely, if you have a significant other, bring them to watch this one. If you have kids, bring them to watch it, obviously. But pretty good time overall. I'd probably give it like a 70 overall. Pretty solid.
So for me, I gave this movie rating wise on Letterboxd, I gave it 4 out of 5. So I'm gonna give it a solid 80 out of 100. I really just enjoyed the journey of these two characters between Wade and Ember, especially Ember's story arc, which I thought was fantastic. And she's very relatable, not only just for obviously like kids and whatnot, just for any time that you've ever that you've worked somewhere where you thought you wanted to work. And, you know, it's just not necessarily the job that it's like cracked up to be, or you're kind of not, I guess you could say, losing your temper, or just like, you know, annoyed with the little things. I love how this movie just goes into topics and themes and discussions like that, where it's like, hey, maybe this isn't your calling. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially for Ember, what you'll see in the movie, where she wants to run her father's shop. And then, you know, throughout the movie, she kind of just has this realization of like, is this something she really wants to do? Especially after meeting Wade. It's kind of like, you know, her needing to have the desire to pay her parents back tenfold from what they've sacrificed for and for what they've done for their daughter. And you see a lot of that throughout the movie. And I think it's very, very beautiful. But yeah, an 80 out of 100 for me. You said 70 out of 100?
Yep.
So 75 out of 100 is going to be the median of our two scores. And that's going to be our official podcast score for Elemental. So there we go. Gotta love that math. I really love, I like the median thing. I wish Rotten Tomatoes did that between, you know, share a little bit of love between the critics and the audience by meeting somewhere in the middle. But yeah, it's, you know, final verdict of Elemental for me. It's definitely one of the best Pixar movies we've had in a while. And I'm really glad that this came to theaters first and foremost. I'm very, very excited that did. And I would recommend it to anyone, honestly, just anyone. You know, it's a Pixar movie. Anyone's going to have a great time with this altogether. But And that concludes today's episode. If you like what you heard on today's episode, make sure to share and subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. And make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Make sure to spread the love of the Film Optix podcast to a movie lover in need. And now let's take a sneak peek of what's coming up next on the show. So coming up next, we have our Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny review, and we're going to be covering the Netflix To Dumb event that will be streaming the weekend of June 16th. So definitely going to be, on top of that, like white on rice, as fast as we can. As fast as time allows us to, honestly. But I'm very excited for us to cover that. And for new review releases, you can listen to our Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse spoiler-free review, as well as our Ted Lasso Season 3 review, our Little Mermaid review, and our The Flash review, and our Transformers Rise of the Beast review as well. I know that was a lot, but all that and more are all on our podcast platforms across the internet. That's Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, you name it. So thank you all for listening. And if you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And make sure to stay connected to us by following us on Twitter and Instagram for the latest updates in film and TV. I'm Christian, and that was Devin signing off. And remember, life is like a movie. So go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Peace.